In today's world of internet generational wars, we hear a lot about boomers being out of touch and Gen Z being the future, but little is often said about Gen X. The reason is, Gen X is the forgotten middle child of history. They were born roughly between 1965 and 1980, and I'll go out on a limb here and say they might be the toughest, most independent group of humans to ever walk the earth. To understand why they are the way they are, we have to look at their childhood, because their upbringing was basically an episode of Survivor. First of all, why are they even called Gen X? For some perspective, the X wasn't meant to be cool or edgy. In math, X is the unknown variable. When these people were born, roughly between 1965 and 1980, the older generation of sociologists literally didn't know what to do with them. They weren't like the baby boomers, who were obsessed with big dreams and loud protests, and they weren't like the silent generation before them. They were just there. So the world slapped an X on them and ignored them. And depending on how you look at it, being the forgotten generation is exactly what gave them their superlative power. When nobody's watching you, you learn how to watch yourself. You become a self-sourced human. If you're 15 today, your life is basically a documentary. Your parents have a GPS tracker on your phone, your teachers email your grades to your house in real time, and if you get lost, you just open Google Maps. But for a Gen X kid, childhood was completely different. They are the original latchkey kids. This is a term you need to know to understand their behavior. A latchkey kid is someone who came home from school to an empty house because both parents were working. They had a physical brass key on a string around their neck. They would let themselves in, make a sad sandwich or some microwave pizza, and then disappear into the neighborhood until the streetlights came on. If this is not the ultimate survival training, then I'm not sure what is. There were no cell phones. If they fell off their bike and broke an arm, they had to walk home, find a neighbor, or just wait. If the TV was fuzzy, they didn't call tech support. They hit the side of the box until the picture cleared up. There were no group chats. If you wanted to see your friends, you rode your bike to their house. If there were 5 bikes lying on the lawn, you knew that's where the vibe was. They spent hours in the woods or at the creek doing things that would make a modern parent faint. They climbed trees without harnesses, they rode in the back of pickup trucks without seatbelts, and they drank water straight from the garden hose. It was a high-risk, high-reward childhood. This created a calloused mindset. They learned how to handle physical pain and social rejection without an audience. They grew up with the very real fear that the world could end in a nuclear flash at any moment. They watched the Challenger space shuttle explode on live TV in their classrooms. They saw the war on drugs and the beginning of the AIDS crisis. They saw the divorce rates skyrocket in the 70s and 80s, which meant many of them were product of a broken home. This made them hyper-skeptical. They don't believe in corporate loyalty or political promises. They've seen the system fail too many times. Gen Xers are the bridge brain. They're the only generation in human history that lived a full analog childhood, but then built the digital world. They are the middlemen of tech. They remember what it was like to use a payphone, to look at a paper map, and to have to wait a week to see photos they took on a camera. But then, as teenagers and young adults, they were the ones who invented Google, Amazon, and the social media platforms we use today. This gives them a bilingual psychology. They can navigate a forest with a compass, but they can also code a website. For some perspective, they are the mechanical backbone of our current system. They understand the why behind the tech because they saw the world before the how existed. Their upbringing also shows up in their social life and culture. If you want to see a Gen Xer get angry, show them something fake. They have a biological allergy to cringe. This is because their entire culture was built on authenticity. The goal for a Gen Xer was to never be a poser. A poser is someone who tries too hard to look cool or follows a trend just to fit in. This is why they find current influencer culture so weird. To them, filming yourself doing a get ready with me is the peak of poser behavior. There's an alternating view that they're just haters, but it depends on who you ask. From their perspective, if it's not raw and real, it's not worth your time. This grit also shows up in their work ethic. Gen Xers are the corporate mercenaries. They don't have the company loyalty of the boomers because they saw their parents get laid off after 30 years of service. They enter the workforce knowing that a job is just a transaction. They want to do their job, do it better than anyone else, and then go home and be left alone. They don't want a pizza party from their boss, they want a paycheck and to be left alone. This privacy is sacred to them. They are the last generation that believes your boss shouldn't know what you did on Saturday night. Because they grew up as latchkey kids, they are excellent at figuring it out. If a Gen Xer is given a task, they don't ask for a tutorial video. They just muddle through until it works. Their mantra is, if you want something done right, do it yourself. They are the fixers. However, every rose comes with a thorn, and there's a dark side to this behavior. Because they were raised to rub salt in the wound and walk it off, they have a very hard time with vulnerability. They were taught that feelings were something you kept to yourself. They didn't have mental health days in 1985. They had go outside and play. This has created a stoic shield around their hearts. They often struggle with internalized stress because they feel like they have to be the adult in the room at all times. After all, if they spent their childhood taking care of themselves, they feel like they have to take care of everyone else now. Speaking of taking care of people, you see, because Gen Xers were so unsupervised as kids, they become the hyper-supervisors of their own children. This is where the term helicopter parent actually comes from. A Gen Xer remembers falling off a 10-foot metal slide onto concrete and just rubbing some dirt on it, so they decided their own kids would have padded playgrounds and helmets for everything. It's a psychological correction. They are trying to give you the safety they never had. They traded their independence for your safety. This is a psychological paradox. The most hands-off generation became the most hands-on parents. However, there is an alternating view, though, that depends on who you ask. Some people say this over-parenting created the anxiety crisis in Gen Z, but from a Gen Xer perspective, they were just trying to be the presence they never had. They are the sandwich generation. They are currently taking care of their aging boomer parents and their Gen Z kids. They are the middle managers of a family unit. They are the ones paying the bills and fixing the toilets. One of the most fascinating things about their belief system is their nostalgia. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that every movie right now is a remake of something from the 80s? Top Gun, Ghostbusters, Star Wars. It's all for Gen X. They have a mighty grip on the vibe of the past. To them, the 80s was the last great era because it was a time humans were untethered. They remember the freedom of being offline. This makes them digital minimalists. Even though they use tech, they often feel a deep hunger for a world where you could just disappear. This is why they love camping, vinyl records, and old-school hobbies. It's a way to reconnect with the analog version of themselves. As we look at them today, we see a group of people who are comfortably cynical. They aren't surprised when things go wrong. They expect it. And because they expect it, they are prepared for it. They are the survivalists of the modern age. They are the tough love generation that knows that life is not a bed of roses and that sometimes you just have to suck it up. They are the X factor, the variable that keeps the whole social experiment from crashing into the ground. They are the sarcastic saints of our time, and honestly, they're probably just waiting for us to finish this video so they can go back to their quiet life. Now, this is my question for you. Since Gen X is the bridge between the old world and the new world, do you think our society is going to fall apart when they finally retire and leave the machines to the generations who have never lived without an undo button, or are they successfully downloading their grit into the rest of us? Share your opinions in the comments below, and I promise to react to every one of them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Should you want to know why you cry so easily, click the video on your screen right now. See you there.